know, right? It's like exciting to go to New Orleans. I'm going to be there for my granddaughter's 10th birthday, which is also really fun and exciting, and to me holds a lot of really special meaning. My daughter was 10 years old when I met her. I didn't plan to get a 10-year-old daughter, but I did. We got a random phone call one day from a social worker friend who said, I know you're not looking for a 10-year-old daughter, but there's just this girl we've got her. She's so cute and bubbly and smart, and I just keep thinking that you guys would be a great match. Would you think about that? I like to think of myself as being open-minded. And so at that point I decided to pretend that I was open-minded long enough for everybody to forget that this was something that was even discussed. We were talking, my husband and I, about getting a child that was about 10 years younger than 10. So definitely not what we had in mind. And I knew my husband Chuck definitely had a sense of adventure that was far outpacing mine, but still I thought he'd be reasonable about this. So we said, sure, we'll at least have a conversation. So we sat down to have lunch with our social worker friend, who showed us pictures of this adorable little girl, pipsqueak, just clearly full of life and full of energy, and told us some about her history, which is kind of history that somebody has if they're looking for a family at 10 years old. Lots of trauma, lots of chaos. In fact, it was, she'd be going into the 3rd grade in that fall, and that would be her 11th school. So, yikes, I'm thinking. So we leave there and head home. Sure, we'll talk about it some more. And I stopped at the bank. This is back when you stopped at the bank in order to get cash for the weekend, because you had to do that when the bank was open and a person gave it to you. And it was really weird to think about now, but when I put those bills back into my wallet, I looked down and scrawled across one of them in great big bold black letters was the name Heather, the name of that girl that was going to be our daughter. So I thought, okay, sign from the universe. And you can argue with a sign from the universe and you can argue with an excited husband. You probably can't argue with both at the same time and win. And so I said, sure, we'll meet her. And we went to a little league game, saw Heather for the first time. Again, tiny little girl. She was definitely much smaller than most of the kids her age, and she's out in the outfield talking trash at the top of her lungs, sliding into bases, knocking kids that are twice her size over. And I looked at her and said, this kid is fearless. And then I looked at her again, and I looked at her face, and her face was pinched. It was like all scrunched up as though everything in the world was being held inside. And I thought, she's really not fearless. What she is brave. And that, started to crack my heart a little bit. So the next step was that she would come and visit us at home. And her worker brought her over after school one day. And, I know what to do when kids come home from school, and said, how about a snack? I offered her a popsicle on this warm, sunny day. And she looked at me, and the pinched face went away. Her eyes were as wide as can be, and she said, you mean I can have a popsicle all to myself and for no reason at all? And that was it. At that point, my heart broke open, and I would never recover from that. It wasn't as easy for Heather as it was for me. One of the first things that she made clear to Chuck and I was, I don't do feelings. I don't do feelings. Now, of course, what she meant was that she wouldn't discuss them. She would have them. She had rage beyond belief, terror, absolute terror, deep, deep sadness, and all of those were acted out clearly. She started a relationship with me that was a push-pull, where she would go from hanging on to my neck so tightly, begging me never to let her go, and then immediately pushing me away with this rage and vehemence that she hated my guts and always would. I would have called it a dance, except that there was no rhythm to it whatsoever. It was just totally all over the place all of the time. Chuck had it easier. I think it was because he wasn't replacing anybody in her life. She had known her mom for a long time. She'd never known her dad. So things were a little easier for him, and I was very grateful to that because I was tired. I was exhausted, and he was steady through those years. I thought I wasn't going to make it through those years, but we did. And by the time she was 13, I found that we were taking a weekend together, mother-daughter, going to the Nutcracker. I watched that face become unpinched. And by the time she was 13, we were really in good shape. Except that at that point, in a cruel twist of fate, my husband suddenly died of a heart attack. I was devastated and betrayed and just completely abandoned, and her feelings were more simple. She was just furious. So she began her adolescence determined she was never, ever going to be nice to anyone again, let anyone in. She had learned her lesson. So I'm going to skip through those horrendous years, except to say that I didn't think we were both going to live through them. I certainly didn't think that I would come out of that with her still my daughter. But when I'm in New Orleans in a couple of days and I see my 10-year-old granddaughter, she's going to run to me with a face that is never pinched unless she's trying to do her math homework. And it'll be open and she will shriek. And both my daughter and her will spend lots of time talking about the fact that I am their favorite person ever. So I opened up to all of that pain, and what I got out of it was twice as much as I ever could have imagined. Thank you.